When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hey, fellow superhero cinephiles. Did you know that almost 30% of adults say they haven't read a book in the past year? The primary reason why is a lack of time. Well, Audible's here to help with the gift of found time. Thanks to Audible, you can listen to audiobooks like Marvel Comics, The Untold Story, or Slugfest, inside the epic 50-year battle between Marvel and DC. Read up on the history of superheroes in comics and movies with Grant Morrison's Super Gods. You can also check out Vanguard, my original superhero novel series, or try The Vril Agenda or The Adventures of Fortune McCall, both of which were written by our dearly departed host emeritus, Derek Ferguson. Whatever you're looking for, Audible has thousands of titles that you can consume while commuting, exercising, cooking, or just relaxing at home. And not only audiobooks, an Audible membership also gives you access to tons of content like podcasts, theatrical performances, and exclusive Audible originals that you won't find anywhere else. To give you a taste of what you can get, Audible has partnered with this show to provide listeners with a free 30-day trial. All you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/supercinemapod, and with your free trial, you get 1 free audiobook and 2 free Audible originals. In fact, you get to keep those titles even if you cancel before the trial is over. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to audibletrial.com/supercinemapod and start your free trial today.
How long have I been here? What are these?
You remember what they are? The shots? No, the seizures. The pills keep them from happening. How about you blowing them to make him safe?
Fuck off, Logan.
Well, so you remember who I am now.
I always know who you are. It's just sometimes I don't recognize you.
Take the pills.
You leave me alone with that fucking albino. He doesn't listen to me. I know a damn speciation when I see one.
What?
Speciation. New mutant, a young one. There are forces trying to kill
Forces?
them. They want help.
Forces. It's too bad you're not in that business anymore.
They don't want me. They want you.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. That's how fucking stupid they are. They're waiting for you at the Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty was a long time ago, Charles. A long time. There are no new mutants, understand? Hasn't been a new one born in 25 years. Not anywhere. I always thought we were part of God's plan. Maybe we were God's mistake.
What a disappointment you are. When I found you, you were pursuing a career as a cage fighter, a warm capper to a life as an assassin hooked on barbiturates. You were an animal, but we took you in. I gave you a family.
They're gone now.
Logan, what did you do? What did you do? Answer me! Why are we here? No one should live like this, drugged in a fucking tank.
For your own good.
No, it's not. You're waiting for me to die.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I am your host, Perry Constantine, and got a little bit of a special guest today in this new episode. So before Superhero Cinephiles a few years before, I did another similar podcast called The Geek Screen. And I didn't do that with Derek, but I did it with another very old friend of mine. And unfortunately, we ran into scheduling conflicts here and there. And after only a few episodes, we had to, kind of close up shop. But I thought I'd ask him to come on and be a guest host on this show instead. And he was, I'm very glad that he agreed to. And that is Juan Bracich. John, how you doing today?
Well, thanks, Perry. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be a guest co-host here on your fantastic podcast. And
Thank you.
I gotta say, when we had our little podcast, it broke my heart. Unfortunately, it was my fault. In case anybody is listening in, which they are, that it's my fault, not Perry's, but mine, because I had a bunch of life stuff come up, particularly medical. So I apologize in that.
Well, it's no problem. Things happen.
But yes, thank you for inviting me. I've been looking forward to this for a week now. I do apologize that I couldn't do it the other day. We had wildfires.
Yeah.
For the listeners, I'm in Arizona. I'm in the heart of Arizona, and there's currently 15 wildfires.
Jesus.
And we were on evacuation notice, and so even the guys that run the internet here were too stupid to figure out, what do we keep it on or do we keep it off?
Oh,
and so, but oddly enough, that's when I had my Starlink installed. So I don't care what they do. But the thing is, I don't understand what the cell phone coverage is here, because off the internet, and my Verizon says, well, I'm going to turn myself off. So we're a fire. We need cell phones.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm veering away. I apologize. So anyways, I want to thank you and have a nice day. No, I'm kidding. I've been listening to your show for a long time. You're both, in fact, you have another podcast.
Japan on Film.
Japan on Film, which I listen to on my podcast. So I run an issue with Stitcher, so I had to change services. But I have to say, I'm deeply impressed. And again, as I mentioned to you before the show, nobody can replace Derek.
Yeah.
And I want to, may he rest in peace. The man was a gem. And so I hope I nobody can fill his shoes, but I hope, if it's okay with him up in the sky, I will do my best here to put a smile and a dance and talk about nerdy stuff.
I'm sure he'd appreciate that. So before we jump into a bit of news here and there,
yes.
Anything? Tell people about yourself, because Johnny and I, we actually go back. This is actually the first guest I've had on the show that I actually know from IRL, as we used to say back in the old days.
Yes, we go back medieval ages, when we were raping and pillaging towns in medieval Europe in central Czechoslovakia before the communists took over. No, I'm kidding. We went to school, university. Of course, we also, in real life, like to do nerd stuff. I mean, you took me to every MCU movie when I looked forward every August when you would come over. I said, well, I know I'm not going to see that. I'm going to wait till Perry shows up. Screw this. I'm not going to go by myself, because then we would go and then we would go drinking.
Yes. Yeah.
In fact, sometimes the two came together.
Yeah. What was it called? The Hollywood
Iron
Boulevard
Man.
Theater.
Right. We saw both Iron Man movies.
I remember one of my favorite drinking memories of you was during the credits, because you were sloshed by the time we got to the end of that movie. And so for people listening, there's this theater in the Chicago, and I think it was in Naperville, wasn't it?
It was no. It's closer to Northwestern University.
No, I think that's a different one.
Second one, it's on the second floor where they were serving drinks.
No, that's just a regular theater. The Hollywood Boulevard was the one where it's the actual restaurant inside. So it was like a restaurant movie experience where they've got you go inside the theater, you sit at tables, waiters come in and take your order before, and then they bring you your food, and then throughout the movie, I think there's like a buzzer or something you could press, like a silent buzzer, and then they'd come in if you had other orders or stuff. So So they had a lot of these really like movie themed mixed drinks and stuff like that, and so Johnny was sloshed by the time we got to the end of Iron Man.
I made the fatal mistake, and to anyone who is listening, listen to this fat fool talking, okay? Never ever order scotch and then mojito, and then proceed to order mozzarella sticks. Okay, I'm sorry. It just it was a disaster.
So we get to the end of the credits, and we had already seen the movie once before.
Yes,
right?
we
We had seen it in a regular theater, and then we decided to go see it again in the Hollywood Boulevard. And
Yes.
during the credits, people are getting up to leave, as they do, and Johnny is shouting at everybody, no, wait, you gotta wait. They got something after the credits.
Yeah.
And then
down.
And then when Samuel L. Jackson appears as Nick Fury, Johnny goes nuts and he's shouting at everyone. He's like, it's Sam Jackson. He's Nick Fury. He's run S.H.I.E.L.D. And nobody knows what he's talking about.
I probably was slurring my words at that
You were.
point.
You definitely were.
Yes, I was. I'm a terrible drunk. I apologize. But yeah.
I wish we had smartphones back then because I would have taken a video of that.
Oh, that would have been all over YouTube. Well,
Yeah.
I could imagine, what stupid bullshit I put through you through. But yeah. But see, that's how we used to watch those movies throughout the first phase of the MCU. The Iron Man movies, the Captain America, right? The first Avenger, right? The Captain America. Yeah. And then not Winter Soldier. I don't.
No, we didn't see Winter Soldier. I saw that here in Japan.
But we did.
I think that summer. I think that was actually one of the years I didn't come back when that came out.
Right. I think you're right there. But I know I saw with you the Spider-Man movies. But that was years before that.
Those are the original Spider-Man.
Yeah.
We saw the Raimi ones together. Yeah.
Right. But I don't think we count those. You can't count those. MCU.
No, they're not. They're not part of the MCU. Well,
no.
Maybe because there's the rumor that Into the Spider-Verse or the Spider-Man No Way Home is going to be like a live-action Spider-Verse because they've got Alfred Molina is coming back, Jamie Foxx is coming back, and there's the rumor is Willem Dafoe is going to be in it too, and also, of course, the persistent rumor that both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are going to be in it as well.
Now, Em sends me this question. I don't know if you have this in Japan or not, but do you have HBO Max?
Yes, I do. I use a VPN.
Oh, that's right. You did. You were talking about Hanzo the Razor. Good show. Weird. Hanzo, if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, but
Derek told me about that, and we were thinking about having him come on to Japan on Film to talk about that, but unfortunately didn't get the chance to.
Right. It's played by the same guy that plays Zatoichi.
I thought it was the same guy from Lone Wolf and Cub.
Oh no, Zatoichi.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyways, again, I'm going off a tangent here. I'm sorry. On HBO Max, I barely use the app. So I was like, look, I'm gonna fire this up. I'm paying for it. I might as well use it.
Yeah.
So, and I noticed when you get down to the MCU movies, they have something there now that I didn't notice before called Marvel Legacy.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, are those Spider-Man movies going to be part of that?
Well, no, because the Spider-Man so Spider-Man's a unique situation where Spider-Man, the movie rights are owned by Sony. So Sony has an agreement with Marvel for Marvel to do Spider-Man movies. But Sony has so that's why Venom has no connection to the MCU. That's why the upcoming Morbius has no connection to the MCU. And the new Spider-Man movies, they're financed by Sony, but Marvel has creative control over them. And they also have a deal that allows Spider-Man to be in the other MCU movies. And
so the Raimi movies do not count.
No.
And the Garfield, which one was the one with Michael Keaton where he plays the Vulture?
That was the first Tom Holland.
The Garfield?
No, that was Tom Holland. Yeah, that was the first Spider-Man movie in the MCU.
Okay, so that counts. Okay,
yes,
good.
Yeah.
I was just curious because the Andrew Garfield one does not count then.
No. Unless they use them as part of the multiverse, which the rumor is, unless that rumor comes true. But still, obviously, they'd be Spider-Man from a different universe, not from the same one.
I gotta tell you, That would be very cool or interesting or fascinating. Maybe cool isn't the right word, but I'm just trying to picture because you had those other actors play Peter Parker very differently,
Mm-hmm.
and they played Spider-Man for the most part very differently.
Mm-hmm.
So, could you imagine if they did the Spider-Verse with all of these guys in? How would that work? How would that gel?
I think it'd be really interesting, just like you saw in fact, the fact that they play them differently is what would make it really interesting, I think.
Mm-hmm. Like how does I always got a kick. I always think like the guy that played the first Spider-Man movies. I'm trying to think of his name again. Oh
Tobey
God,
Maguire?
Tobey Maguire. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Aunt May
Mm-hmm.
was an elderly lady.
Yeah. Rosemary
Okay,
Harris, yeah.
Rosemary Harris, and the last Spider-Man, Aunt May is played by a much younger
Marissa
woman,
Tomei, yeah.
Marissa Tomei. And I always wondered how would that Peter Parker react to this Aunt May, And I actually screw that. Here's my universal question: would we get the same J. Jonah Jameson?
Well, yeah, because he was at the end of Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Right, I know that.
So yeah,
Would
he'll
they
be.
keep-
Oh yeah, they'll definitely keep him.
Okay, they see he gotta keep.
Yeah.
There's like in Doctor Who, the show, there's these constants they would say,
Mm-hmm.
right? J. Jonah Jameson, played by, oh God, I'm having a brain fart.
J.K. Simmons.
Thank you, J.K. Simmons. I'm thinking, Allstate guy, and he does these commercials over here for insurance, farmers. He does for farmers insurance over here.
Oh yeah. I've seen
You
those
know.
on YouTube every now and then when I do when
And
I watch with the VPN.
he's a constant in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, anyways, I know this is completely different from Logan and everything, but like I said, we veer off. But I just I would love for them to expand on the Spider Universe.
Yes.
I love the Spider. I think I've seen that animated movie like 2,000 times.
It's so good.
Yeah. It's very good.
Yeah.
And in all sense, I wish they would do another animated sequel.
They are. They're doing a second Spider-Verse movie. Yeah.
Oh. Okay,
so that's coming down the pike. But anyway, I want to talk about a few bits of news, which
yes.
Unfortunately is got to start off on a bit of a down note, which is that Richard Donner passed away at the age of 91.
Yes.
And obviously directed a lot of movies from our childhood.
Oh my gosh.
The Lethal Weapon quadrilogy, Goonies, and of course Superman the movie, and the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. And not The Exorcist, The Omen. He also directed that as well. One of the greatest horror movies ever made.
That movie, we accidentally rented that movie from Video Hut. Because back in the 80s, you had these mom and pop. There was no Blockbuster.
Right.
There was these small mom and pop. We had a place called Video Hut. Even though it was in a corner of a plaza, it was called Video Hut. But we rented it because back then VHS cases were either extremely honest or extremely misleading. Like there was a movie about, like for example, there was a movie that showed astronauts in the apocalypse, and it had turned out to be a movie about psychics. And so, like, wait a minute, it's like doesn't make any sense. So we rented Omen, and in fact, it was one of the first movies we rented on VHS in the 80s. And it was like, oh wow, you can actually rent the movie. You don't have to wait till fucking Channel 9 movie of the week, or excuse me for swearing. I don't know if that's allowed.
Okay. It's totally fine.
Okay, or ABC back in the day, kids. You wanted to watch a movie, you didn't go to the theater. It was like on Sunday or Friday or the weekend. It was always some dog shit movie from 40 years ago. And so you could only watch some of those over and over again. So we rented Omen because the case, I shit you not, the original case, Google it, okay, had nothing about Damien or the devil, and my dad thought it was a cowboy movie. And I'm like, this don't look like a cowboy movie, Pop. This don't look like a. So we came, and of course, it's got Sam Neill.
Oh, you're talking about the Omen 3.
No, Oh yeah, Omen 3. No, but the previous one before you're right. Sam Neill is in the third one where he plays a grown-up Damien.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about, so we're watching though the original, and there's always that scene where the teacher says, "I'm doing this for you, Damien," and she jumps out and hangs herself. And my mother and we lived on the second floor, and of an apartment building in Chicago. She just bolted out of that house. Like, I'm not watching this. And my dad's like, "I paid the $17 again, 1980s."
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, it was expensive. We're watching this. I had nightmares for a month, and so anyways, but Richard Donner, holy shit, he made so many great movies. One of my earliest best memories was in Chicago. There's a place called Rosemont, which you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And to most of you out there, it was near O'Hare Airport. Well, back in the 80s, during it was like the last hurrahs of drive-in theaters, and you could tell this place did not upkeep itself. They saw the writing on the walls. But it was my first Superman movie.
Oh, okay.
And it was
So that was the first one. That was the first one. Superman the movie.
First one. And so me and Yanni Kalamatanos, my neighbor Kay, my best friend growing up, we sat on my dad's. We would sit on. He would park the car backwards. He had a big station wagon, like one of those long, look like the.
Oh yeah, those
Brady Bunch.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. My family had one of those too back in the day.
Right. So he would back it up and open the back seat. We would all be laying there watching it. We would put the little metal, now rusting, speakers onto the car, and we would have popcorn. And we were just like, there's this giant screen, because the only other place back then we could see a movie was the Norwich Theater, which back then was just 2 screens and it was smaller. And so imagine watching Superman and Donner, when you watch that first scene where it was closing in on Krypton, that intro scene.
Yeah.
And it was do that soundtrack starts up. And you're looking at this and you're like, and remember, for the uninitiated, the screen was like 3 times the size. It was like an IMAX screen today.
Right.
Okay, so it's like, oh my stars. And then fucking the guy that played the Godfather. Oh shit.
Marlon Brando.
Marlon. See, I'm telling you, but why I need probably have IMDb up. He just appears out of nowhere. And my mother, being my mother, oh, this is the Godfather. No. My cat says there was no Krypton in Godfather. So I love my mother, but she gets confused very easily. So anyways, he appears out of nowhere with this sparkling white hair. Remember that?
Yes, yeah.
And he's talking about my son, and he whips out that green crystal. And when and I said to myself, this man, because I had been reading, my original into comic books was only Spider-Man and Superman. That was it. I actually didn't get into Batman until the 90s, only because I was sick a lot and my mother only had so much money to buy comic books. And for some reason, the Superman comic books in the local store was cheaper, and I don't know why, but it just was. And my cousin would take the Batman and never share it with me. And anyway, so I got into Superman like you wouldn't believe. And I'm like, Richard Donner really paid attention, because you see the other Superman movies, from like the 40s and stuff, and it's they don't really. It's like the 1940s Batman. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Only clips here and there.
Okay, it is probably one of the most racist things you'll ever watch. I mean, they really need. I get it. It was a war going on, but my stars, they didn't pay attention. I watched the old not Christopher Reeves.
You mean the George Reeves TV show?
George Reeves, thank you. Forgive me. George Reeves TV show. They sort of came from, like the very basics. But Donner really kept it. Oh, I got an internet and stable connection. Did you get one of those?
No, you're every now and then you got a little bit of a freeze coming in, but let's just
Oh,
keep. We'll try to power through it.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It happens.
So, and so you're watching this, and yeah, Donner took some liberties. Gene Hackman,
Hmm.
obviously didn't want to. There was an issue with him and his mustache. Was that what
Yeah,
the case?
he had a mustache originally, and actually we talked about this way back in our first episode when we talked about Superman the movie. But um, Hackman had a mustache, and at first he didn't want to shave his mustache off. And Donner made a deal with him. Donner said, "You shave off your mustache, I'll shave off mine." And they hadn't met in person at this point. So
Yeah,
when
right.
when Hackman comes on the set, face freshly shaven, Donner has a fake mustache on that he peels off.
Yeah,
And but yeah, he refused to shave his head. He refused to be bald in the movie. So the only
that's
thing he
right.
agreed to was to wear the bald cap at the end of the movie. But yeah, he refused to shave his head, and and then said they went with the idea that he has all these different wigs.
But even so, even with those liberties,
Hmm.
he captured Don handle Hackman to do a decent Lex Luthor, very good
Hmm.
Lex Luthor. I mean, oddly enough, that's the first movie I saw with Ned Beatty.
Oh yeah. Same
You know,
here. Well, that was the first movie I saw with any of them because I don't remember it. I don't remember when I first watched that movie because I was so young the first time I watched it. But I do know we had a VHS copy of it, and I watched that damn thing so much the tape broke.
I understand that. Thing happened to me with Star Wars, and I always have Mr. Luthor,
Yeah.
and you always have that theme of his where he's walking down the train track and he's being followed. He knows I'm going to press this button and he slides into the wall. And poor cop gets run over by the train.
Mhm.
Spoiler alert there. Sorry. But every detail, like I though when he was putting Daily Planet together and all the other details, um, I remember him saying in an interview, or at least no, excuse me. I remember Siskel and Ebert, and
Mhm.
don't mention this if you ever look at the review of the movie, that they said that Donner tried to catch the actual characters of at least Lois Lane,
Mhm.
and played by
Margot Kidder.
Margot Kidder, and of course Christopher Reeve did an excellent job.
Yes, yeah.
God rest his soul. He was a fantastic Superman.
Mhm. Oh
Um,
yeah, the best one easily.
easily. I mean, he is the gold standard, or I
Mhm.
should say, the kryptonite standard. And what can you say? Even and then the only character I thought that was weak, and you're gonna forgive me here, forgive me, is Jackie Cooper's portrayal of Perry White.
Oh really?
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was good.
Mhm.
It was good. Uh, but I don't know. It just something about it always threw me off. It's probably just me, you know. But I would my superhero movies, especially in the 70s, um, contained a stigma. I learned. I was watching on
Mhm.
AMC, and they were talking about this, and apparently that's one of the reasons why they got Glenn Ford on there to play Pa Kent.
Mhm.
Besides Marlon Brando, of course. And
Yeah.
they wanted these A-list actors because up until that point, and this goes to
Well,
this
even after
adds
that point, that was pretty much the way it was for. I mean, you had some notable exceptions here and there where you'd have Jack Nicholson in Batman
right.
or Danny DeVito in Batman Returns, but or you have Martin Sheen pop up in Spawn. But every now and then, you'd have notable actors pop up in these movies. But for the
Yes,
most part, right, the movies were completely looked down upon,
they were. They
and
were.
it wasn't really until X-Men really started the ball rolling on redeeming superhero, but I don't think it was really until Iron Man and the Dark Knight really kind of cemented it as like, okay, we can have A-list actors in these movies.
And see, but I don't think they could have done it had Richard Donner not pulled off Superman the way
Absolutely, yeah. That's exactly what I was gonna say, is that you don't get to the MCU without Richard Donner. Like it just doesn't happen. Donner, you don't get to 89 Batman without Donner.
Exactly.
Like
Yes.
Donner set the blueprint for this whole genre.
Now, it's why it always saddened me, and I think it was you that told me about this. Well, what happened when they did the sequel?
Yeah.
And then they cut him out, and I've never seen the Donner cut of Superman 2.
It's good. It's good. It's got some weaknesses because they reused the ending from the first Superman movie, because that was because originally when he was filming the first two movies, he was filming them back to back, and the reversing time, the going back in time ending was originally supposed to be the end of Superman 2, but they were going over schedule, and they had to meet the deadline for the first Superman movie, and so Donner had already shot the time travel sequence. So he's like, well, let's just use that for the ending of Superman 1. And then when we get to the end of Superman 2, we'll figure out how we end that one. And then, of course, obviously, he got edged out by Richard Lester, and then Lester finished the cut his own way. So they didn't really know how, when they went back, it was in 2006.
Are we still connected?
Came out. Yeah.
Hello?
And can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. I know you froze there. I thought, I got one of those unstable ones, but
Okay.
But
so they when he went back to when Warner Brothers finally gave him the funding to compile his cut of Superman 2, they had to figure out what they're going to do for the ending. And he either had the choice of using the ending that Richard Lester used when Clark and Lois, when Clark has that amnesia kiss thing, or they had the ending when they reverse time. And he decided to go with the reversing time ending again. So that's the only real weakness of it, is that ending. But other than that, it's a much stronger Superman 2.
Right. I don't even count Superman, the atomic one. I don't count that guy.
Mm-hmm.
That one. That's like bad movie night Superman. But the thing is, Richard Donner, he knew who he was appealing to.
Yeah.
He knew the kids were gonna watch this, and he knows. I'm going to say comic book action. I can't think of a better set of terms.
Mm-hmm.
And all of his movement, a lot of his, these like Goonies, you press the Goonies. And, Goonies as an adventure film, it was like one of those, you got a caper, you got, of course, I'm trying to think of the name of the formed character again in Goonies.
Oh, I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen Goonies.
But the thing is you get all these moments, you get all these things. Again, he knows it, like the dance from Goonies, the truffle.
Mm-hmm.
You get these little funny, shitty things.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious, and and then you see the same, like there's a glint. You can see it in if the movie was a person, okay.
Mm-hmm.
If the movie was a person, there's a glint in that eye. It's like winking at you, like, hey, let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun. And so even in the Lethal Weapon movies, I mean, that's not exactly the same kind of movie as obviously Goonies and Superman. We're talking a completely different type of movie here.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at Mel Gibson, and it's sort of like, okay, I'm going to take you on the same roller coaster. We're going to have fun here.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a crime movie, we're going to, and it right off the bat when the guy is threatening to jump off the building.
Yeah.
Let's go together. Let's go together. Like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? What is, right there, like, and you see Murtaugh and Briggs, right? Murtaugh is, was Murtaugh Mel Gibson's character?
No, Murtaugh was played by Danny Glover, and then
Glover, right.
Riggs was played by Mel Gibson.
Griggs, right. And so you see Murtaugh looking like, and then the whole I'm too old for this shit. That the memes started there.
Yeah.
It's like he planted these seeds of cinema fun that were like awesome. But anyways, I'm talking too much.
But okay, so a few other just two other bits I wanted to mention is that were you a Spawn fan back in the 90s?
Yes, I got the first issue. I used to collect that almost religiously.
Well, you might be happy to know that there's a Spawn reboot movie in the works, and the producer is Jason Blum, and it was revealed in 2017 that he'd be producing it, but there hasn't been a lot of news coming out.
What storyline are they using?
We don't know. All Blum said recently that the movie is still in his plans. Blumhouse, his production company, is going to be making it. He says it's taken a while to get the script right, but they'll make it. And it looks like Jamie Foxx.
Do it. He could do it.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx is the few details that fans have been provided so far have confirmed that Spawn will be played by Jamie Foxx. And he said it was comparable. He said the character of Spawn was comparable to Black Panther. And Jeremy Renner was also announced to play Twitch.
Oh
now,
my God.
Now, originally, McFarlane said that the film would not have a big focus on Spawn. It would mostly be focused on Sam and Twitch, and Spawn would be more of a background figure. But whether or not that's still the plan, we're not sure. But McFarlane said that he says, it's the same sort of frustration. I keep saying the same thing, and at some point, I'm sure it falls on deaf ears. But we just added another person. Movement is happening. So when it actually comes, we'll see. But the 30th anniversary of Spawn is coming up soon, so maybe they'll try to time it with that. But that's the news about Spawn. That's what we got out so far.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I'm excited. I remember watching the movie with Martin Sheen.
Yeah.
And and like, holy shit. I mean the CGI was but
I rewatched that movie about a year or two ago. It does not hold up at all.
No, it does not. It's a friend of mine. We recently, oddly enough, I a friend here who works at the Starbucks. He's my local Perry, you could say, in a way. Okay, I don't really go often at Starbucks, but it's in the store, and it's hardly you can't avoid. You got to literally go through it to go buy your eggs. And anyways, we were talking and like, oh yeah, you're into this too. Like, holy shit, I got somebody to talk comic books with, and stuff. And he goes, you know what? It aged as bad as a Nintendo 64 game. Yeah, like I'm not gonna argue. I'm not gonna argue but wow, God, I remember when that comic book came out. There was the whole starting of Image. Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, and it was like they had all these different covers and all this other stuff. It was that era when you had Wildcats, you had of course Spawn, you had the Max, you had the green cop with the spiky fin. I'm having a brain fart.
Oh, Savage Dragon.
Savage Dragon, thank you. I'm like, I remember reading Spider-Man, and all of them have these other things. God, it was just magic. It was magic because different storylines and all this other stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately,
did they say when
we don't know anything. Just the details that I said. That's all we really know so far. Is that Blumhouse is producing it. Jamie Foxx and Jeremy Renner are going to be in it, and possibly that the focus is going to be more on Twitch than Spawn, and Spawn's going to be more of like a background character.
Right.
That's all we know so far.
Okay. Well then, oh my gosh. Well, okay. So, what else have you found?
Well, the other thing I mentioned, I had to bring up, and this is something you and I talked about briefly before we started recording, and so there's, Hugh Jackman. He posted there's a fan art piece of Wolverine, just like it was just a fan art piece of Wolverine holding out his claws. Hugh Jackman shared that to his Instagram, and then less than 24 hours later, he shared a photo of him with Kevin Feige. So this has led to people suspecting that Jackman will be like you, yeah, suspecting that he'll be reprising his role as Wolverine in the MCU, which I say no, I don't think that's what it means, because the dude's in his 50s, and to get as cut as he did for those movies, he had to literally dehydrate himself.
Yeah, he
And
can't do that again.
you get to a point where your body just physically cannot keep up with that kind of routine anymore. And he's getting to that point. So I doubt, and Marvel's not going to want to have him come in just for one movie and then have to recast him, right? They're not going to want to do that.
Well, hasn't there been talk of just rebooting?
Well, yeah, they're going to reboot. They are rebooting them. Everything's going to be rebooted. The only real carryover is going to be Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is still going to be Deadpool, but other than that, it's all going to be rebooted, recasted.
You know what? I don't care what other movie Ryan Reynolds does. He will always be known as Deadpool. You know,
yeah.
It's like Clint Eastwood with dirty hair or the man with no name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the same. That's him.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
him. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. It'd be interesting how he would direct. Didn't he direct another movie? Australia. Didn't he direct?
No,
Australia?
I think he was just. I don't think he directed that. I think he just starred in it.
He was just in that. That wasn't a bad movie. Honestly.
I never saw it.
Let me say this. It's
no, yeah, he hasn't made a directorial debut yet. Not according to IMDb. So okay. Yeah. So like we were talking about before, my theory is that if anything, and it could just be him just trolling, right? It could just be him just.
It could always be
because
that, yes.
You know they know. Like Kevin Smith jokes about this on his podcast all the time. That anytime he says something on the show, the next day, like these quote unquote news sites come up, post up an article about it.
Yes, and you saw when he did that when he was doing the Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
it's just nonstop and it's ridiculous. And he's like, I'm just a fan commenting on this stuff, but they post it up as if it's news. But
well, I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker.
So if anything, like if it means anything, I think it might mean that Jackman will be involved in whatever Marvel's doing with Wolverine going forward, and that could be as a director, right? Maybe he is looking to make a directorial debut, which would be great. Like it would be really cool to see him. Because he obviously knows that character. He obviously loves that character. So it would be really cool to see him directing that movie. Or an X-Men movie, yeah.
I think he knows it well enough to do that. And I'll tell you, this segues into what you originally invited me here for, which was to Logan, the movie.
Yes, yeah.
Which I have to tell you, I saw the movie when it came out.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a fantastic movie. And I, for the life of me, even to this day, when I rewatched it, in fact, I bought it on Amazon. I'm not gonna lie to you. I went and bought it, and I go.
I bought it on iTunes as soon as it was released.
Right. I don't. Though I regret not getting the noir version.
Oh, really? My version has both.
Yeah. Well, Amazon doesn't give you that, so unfortunately,
that sucks.
Yeah, I know. Fucking Amazon. Jeff Bezos, you can stay in space. But and I'm slipping off the bed here. Hold on 1 second. All right. Sorry about that. My bad. So anyways, I'm watching this movie, and it's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one. In fact, I had just seen. I don't know if you've seen it. That is, but the girl. Well, actually, let's not. You know what? I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. Yeah, we're talking about Logan, the Hugh Jackman's last outing as Wolverine, and also Patrick Stewart's last outing as Professor X. And this is very, very loose adaptation of Mark Millar's Old Man Logan storyline. Or it takes that idea where you've got an old Wolverine and the X-Men are dead, and that's basically the starting point. In the comic, it was Wolverine had killed the X-Men because he was
Mysterio.
Mysterio, yeah. It was Mysterio had used illusions and had tricked him into thinking that the X-Men were actually villains, and he ends up killing all of them, except for like Emma Frost survives, and I think there's maybe one or two other that survived, but basically he killed all of them. And in Old Man Logan, it's set in this. There's like a nuclear war or something happened, and now the Hulk has like these kids.
Hillbilly
It was
kids.
yeah, it was really bizarre. It was really weird.
It was like as if the world, the one I read,
Mhm.
you know, the world is all these separate zones or something.
Oh,
There
that was
even
in
like,
Battle World. That was part of the Secret War stuff. So
well,
that came later.
well, but the other one I read was the Hillbilly Hulk one.
Yeah, that was the original one. Yeah.
That one I read, and it makes you think. After I read it, like, man, Hulk's a real asshole.
Mhm.
His kids are pieces of shit. They went and killed that family regardless. They were like debt collectors, and I had to read. It was a long time since I read that.
Mhm.
So, but I mean, that's the only part that stuck out to me was, and I'm glad they did not go. First off, number one, MCU, do they Marvel still hold the rights for Hulk?
Marvel has the rights to Hulk.
Okay.
They don't have the distribution rights. Like Universal still has the distribution rights, so
Okay.
they can make movies with the Hulk, but they can't make a Hulk movie.
Right. That's what I was wondering, because I know he's in the Avengers and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But that's different, because I said there's no way they're gonna. I'm glad they didn't go that route.
Yeah.
I'm glad they went the route that they did. It was I'm not gonna say it's a Western, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, it's basically Shane with mutants.
Well, I will say I will go that far. I think it is a Western. I think. I mean, it's
You think
very.
it's a Western? What you call it a Western?
I would definitely call it a Western. It's very much influenced by Western movies. Like it's Shane and
Well, they say the
Unforgiven.
Gauntlet.
Shane and Unforgiven were like the
Right.
two big movies that Mangold used for inspiration for this movie.
Right. I'll tell you, and you're gonna think, "God, that's stupid," but at points of it, it reminded me of Fury Road, the last Mad Max movie.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that there too. Yeah.
And he was right. It's spot on about Gauntlet. If you ever seen Gauntlet,
I've never seen that one. No.
okay, it's basically almost similar premise. This one guy's got to survive the day.
Mm-hmm.
These criminals are trying to go after them, but
there's also a bit of Outlaw Josie Wales in it too.
Yes. There's a couple of actually Clint Eastwood movies you can bring up on this, and in fact, not just Clint Eastwood, a lot of noir from the classic 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
Saving the Damsel in Distress. I mean,
all that goes back to just the influence on those movies.
Yeah.
Like you look at, because obviously, Fistful of Dollars was an unauthorized, basically a ripoff of Yojimbo, and Yojimbo was heavily based on Red Harvest, and Kurosawa used a lot of noir tropes and things like that in constructing that movie. So that carried over to Fistful of Dollars and so on. And you look at Wolverine, like Wolverine as a character, there is so much of Mifune and Eastwood's DNA in Wolverine.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you just go by the look, I mean, that's bad. If you look at almost every Clint Eastwood movie, even the Cowboys or Dirty Harry, whatever, he's got the sides of chops. I mean, not as Wolverine had him, but just an aesthetics. But you're right, the way the character is, his demeanor. Let's be honest, Logan. His only, I don't want to say life, but his only thing he cares about is keeping Professor X alive.
Yeah.
That is it. He doesn't give a shit about the world. He doesn't give a shit about he doesn't even give a shit about Caliban, who's taking care of Professor X. He can't even get him his right medicine. But also, like you said, he's seen all of the people. I mean, think about this for 1 second. Imagine everybody is gone. Not an apocalyptic end of the world thing, but and that the person responsible for that, you have to take care of, because Professor X didn't purposely kill those people.
Right. Yeah.
And he's got to live with that. And there hasn't been any new mutants. Which I gotta be honest, I'm gonna say that's the one weak point I had with the world
Mhm.
setup was when with that professor, that evil scientist,
Yeah.
the guy who played. I like it.
Yeah, that was Dr. Rice.
Dr. Rice. He wasn't this guy. He always plays a pretentious asshole in every other
Mhm.
thing he's in. You know, whether it's fucking Doctor Who or he's in Game of Thrones.
Mhm.
And all this, and he's in it. And when he goes and Dr. Price explains how they got rid of mutants, using corn syrup and corn, which I don't know. That's the one
That was
part
a
that,
little, yeah, that was a little weird, the way
you
they
know,
tried to work that in.
how the hell did they pull that shit off? But other than that, it's still they set up an interesting world where you definitely see points of it, like in the casino where there's a lot of haves and
Mhm.
all this, and then outside of that, you see these desolation on an economic level too,
Yeah.
like with the farmer.
Mhm.
I could, you know what? Because that really hit home close here because there's no automated tractors here, nothing. We do see these big agri farms here in Arizona
Yeah.
trying to take out these small, mainly minority-owned farmers here. Or
There's actually, I was just listening to the news before we started recording, and there's actually was it Stephen Miller, the Nazi who's working in the Trump administration. He's apparently working with a bunch of white farmers to screw
yes,
black farmers out of a
right,
lot of what little land they still own.
right, and so, and then not only that, you also see, for example, again, this has got to be pure coincidence, okay? Local public radio here, not just local, a lot of those,
Mhm.
that there's a shortage of truckers.
Mhm.
And then you see a lot of small trucking firms either being taken out of business by larger ones. And then you see also that trucking jobs are being slowly replaced by automation. And then you see in the movie
Mhm.
these robot trucks
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they don't slow down, they don't give a shit. They're just hauling their cargo,
Mhm.
and so you're like, well, what about these horses on the road and all that stuff? But this movie is at so many different levels, and I hate to say this, but it also touches on the migrant story. Now,
It does. It does. Yeah, absolutely.
uh, refugee status and all this. And I know the movie came out in 2017, but it was being filmed
Well, I mean,
during
even still, like,
2016.
yeah, but even still, even before Trump, like, you still had the refugee crisis
Right.
happening. So, yeah, I think that's
You know,
definitely, I mean, because there was that, what was it? There was that big caravan that came in during Obama's term. I think that was in what,
yes,
like
from Nicaragua.
2014? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, where I live, it's a very big issue.
Well, actually,
And
you just touched on something that I didn't that I completely missed, but that makes so much sense now, and I'm thinking about it now because the reason you have all this destabilization in Central and South America is because of what the U.S. has done, right? Like all the CIA and on all that bullshit
oh yeah,
that they
oh
got up to
yeah,
in the during the
the
Cold
Iran
War.
Contra. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm trying to think of the name of the farmer. The
I got it right here.
his
Munson.
character, Munson. He goes on talking about the crops and
Hmm.
all that stuff. You know, we did the same damn thing to the farmers in Mexico.
Yeah, yeah. And also
Mexico.
wasn't it in Guatemala too? The where the term
Yes.
Banana Republic actually comes from.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Dole Company. Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
There's a whole. In fact, uh, Google the name Smedley Butler. He was hired. He was a member of the U.S. Army, and he basically he's the one that warned us, I'm not going to fight for the U.S. to do this, keep up the plantations anymore. And he's the one that came up with the whole war is a racket.
Hmm.
But there's a scene with Munson where he's talking about how he's struggling not just to get water,
Hmm.
but his crops are much better because they're natural versus these genetic crops that they were producing.
Right. Yeah.
And how and we did the same thing in Mexico. And I'm sorry for the listeners that we're going into geopolitics here and a whole
Well,
thing, but
we've done that kind of stuff before, and this is I think it's a
right,
really interesting
right.
dimension to the movie that.
But see, I think that's one of the implications of the movie
Hmm.
is, like I said, Mexico was known for corn.
Right.
Everything's Iowa and Indiana. No, it was Mexico,
Hmm.
and we completely destroyed their industry with our cheaper corn.
Hmm.
And now you're seeing with the smaller farmers here. I think what you're seeing also, and let's be honest, the crux of the bad guy, the real villain wasn't actually Dr. Pierce. It was Transingen,
Hmm.
the pharmaceutical company.
Right.
What's a pharmaceutical company coming up with mutants,
Yeah.
right? And then you see the same thing with with child. Again, you just brought it up. The whole caravan.
Hmm.
They were nothing but children.
Right.
Okay, and so you see the same thing in the movie. They're breeding children,
Hmm.
and they're getting rid of the mothers, which a lot of the cartels do here.
Hmm.
Um, you're seeing these kids, which I gotta say, clicking on it. If you pay attention closely when they show the names of the kids,
Hmm. Oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. They
you
used
know,
there were different combinations of
right. You got Richter, the DNA of Avalanche.
right.
You got
Yes. Yeah.
all these other ones, and so then we get to this girl, and X-23,
Yes.
and her quote
Played by
unquote mom,
Daphne Keene.
Daphne King, excellent actress.
Amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I have to tell you, if you haven't seen, there's actually, I highly recommend, if you have not seen on HBO, she's been on his Dark Materials, really great. But in the movie, and in to me, Pete personally, she did another movie in 2020, a movie that came out after obviously Logan,
Hmm.
that in one odd way to me is a spiritual successor in a way.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it's got nothing to do with mutants. And it's a movie called Anna.
Oh,
And
I've heard of this movie.
oh my God, it is a fun movie. And basically, she does such a great job. Only difference, instead of it being a mutant, she plays a con artist.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
And in a way, this movie is a remake of Paper Moon,
Okay.
which is another influence for the movie Logan.
Hmm.
If you look it up, and they're trying to survive him, her, and Andy Garcia, who's playing a loser of a car salesman trying to get money.
Hmm.
And so the thing is, she is so versatile. And you hear her speak, and she's got a British accent, and then she can quickly switch to Spanish. And I honestly, I'm glad she got the role over Bobby Millie Brown.
Hmm.
The girl from Stranger Things.
Yeah, I didn't even know that she was in contention for that. That's
Oh yeah,
interesting.
no, it was between the two of them.
Oh, okay.
And what won her over? What won her over? I think enough. I mean, think about this. And I don't know why they were thinking about the Stranger Things girl, because the story starts in Mexico,
Hmm.
right? And so there's that scene. It's in the movie where Hugh Jackman's character is saying, "Can you can talk?" Blah blah blah, and then she starts ripping on him in
Yeah.
Spanish. And I mean, her Spanish, what's amazing is because her mother's from Spain, not Mexico,
Yes. Yeah.
but she got the Spanish dialect and accent down like cold.
Hmm.
And that's what sold her.
Yeah.
She did the lines all in. Her lines were supposed to be in English. She did them
Oh,
in
really?
Spanish. Yes. She did them in Spanish. And you watch, and another amazing thing about X-23 or Laura, right? Laura is
And I didn't realize what she was saying at first, but I looked it up after the last time I watched it, and you know more Spanish than I do, obviously, so you can correct me if this translation I found is wrong. But it says that because he's saying, "What, you can talk now?" and she's yelling at him, "Why do you want me to talk to you if you're always insulting me, yelling at me? If you try to leave me
yes,
behind,
yes,
you want me to
yes,
open up my mouth?" And
yes,
then that's when he tells her to shut up.
yes. No, no, no. You got it spot on. And I have to say the character itself is for non-initiated. This was not the first appearance of X-23.
No,
We
no,
have
she originally appeared in the
X-Men Evolution
X-Men
cartoon.
Evolution, the animated series,
Yeah,
and then later she was introduced in the comics through
right,
NYX was her first appearance in the comics, and then later
right.
she ended up joining the X-Men, and then she eventually after Wolverine, when Wolverine died for a period in the comics, she actually took up the mantle of Wolverine.
Yes, Yes, she did. That's right. There's even a Funko doll of her.
Yes, yeah.
And what blew me away, because I in preparation of this, I said, okay, the Evolution cartoon came up, and I just happened to be on HBO Max.
Mhm.
I looked at the dates. I'm like, holy shit! And then I looked it up. Her character was made for that cartoon.
Yes.
And my comic book knowledge is nowhere near yours. But the only other comic character I could think of like that,
Sorry,
who
say it
was made
again.
for the only other character I could think of that was in a similar origin is Harley Quinn.
There have been a few, actually. Harley Quinn is the most notable one, but also Firestar from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friend. She was created for that cartoon, and then later she was introduced first in the New Mutants, and then later she became a member of the New Warriors.
Right, you're right.
There are a few others. Phil Coulson was one who was created for the movies, and then they introduced him in the comics afterwards.
Right.
There have been a few others here and there, but Harley Quinn is obviously the most notable one.
Right. Well, that's the one that just popped up, and you're absolutely right. Firestar. God, that would bring me back. I remember watching that as a kid.
Yeah.
And that never made sense to me. Firestar, Iceman, and Spider-Man renting out a condo.
Yeah, it was a really weird premise.
Like, and then they go meet up the X-Men. There was one episode where they meet up the X-Men.
There were 2 episodes that they had.
I only know the one.
Oh no, there were 2 of them. Because that was part of the backstory is that Firestar and Iceman were originally part of the X-Men, and I'm not sure. Trying to look up see if there's any background of it, but
well, I'll tell you. And I know we're veering off here. Sorry again, folks. But back in the late '80s, early '90s, any other besides Spider-Man, because 99% of all Marvel back then was either Spider-Man or Hulk.
Yeah,
there was nothing really. Honest with you, unless you wanted to watch Lou Ferrigno live action, or some very terrible live action Thor or.
Oh, so apparently the show was originally supposed to be Spider-Man, Iceman, the Human Torch, but there were legal issues with using the torch. Like there were some licensing issues, so that's why they introduced Firestar instead.
Well, like I say, necessity is the mother of invention, and this is that's even cooler than, and. So when they came out with an X-Men animated movie, besides these, like you said, 2 episodes, oh my God, everybody was in excitement. This is before anything else that was on TV for kids.
Right.
And so I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm sorry. But I'm just highlighting that like the Harley Quinn situation. And I'll tell you, her X-23, yes, she is half the age, I think, or at least 7 years younger.
Yeah, because she was 11 when she filmed this, and X-23 is when she first appeared. She was at least like 16 or 17.
Right, but I have to tell you, and I know the stunt double who also has a separate role in the movie.
One of the reasons was because Mangold was so impressed with her performance that he gave her a small role in the movie.
Right, but I have to tell you, if you look at how Wolverine fights, and he's coming at you, and he's already got one arm ready to dig into you, and the other arm ready to gut you, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, forgive me, but I watched how she played X-23, and again, I'm stupid here, okay, gang? But I immediately thought of the midget from Castlevania 3. Do you remember Castlevania 3?
I don't think I played Castlevania 3.
Or okay, I think
I've only really played what was it? The one on the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, Symphony of the Night. That was the only one I played.
Well, in Castlevania 3, there is a little midget, and he's got a little knife or something, and he will get on top of somebody. He likes to roll around or go on the ceilings, shit like that. But he would roll around the people and get the people. And I'm watching, but it's not just him, but she basically pulls wrestling moves on every one of the Reavers. I mean, for a little girl, and maybe it's the adamantium, quite possible, but I watched like, holy shit, she took out a guy with 2 robot arms, and then all these Mexican federales, she guts him, and then knocks him over, and then like 15 stab wounds in the eye to one guy. cuts off the leg of another one, and they're not expecting this. That
No.
opening scene when they find them, and again, I feel so sorry for Caliban, the glorified truffle pig, as he called himself, but you see them go in there like, we can handle it. And damn well, in any movie you've ever seen, there's always that one bad guy or henchman, Reaver, whatever, it doesn't matter. They got that look like, I got this. And you're like, no, you're fucked. You're fucked. The kid's eating cornflakes. And then when she gives that glance, that look, you know what this also reminded me of? It just clicked in my head. There was that movie, The Professional.
Yeah, Leon, yeah.
Leon, right, with the little girl. I just thought, I got to watch that movie again. It's been a long time. That movie sort of reminded me of that. I know, obviously, they're different movies. But I'm just thinking of all the.
Yeah, that one had a much creepier implications to that relationship.
Right. I know. But I'm just saying, it just reminded me of things like that. But let's talk about the Reavers for a moment. It's very cool. Now, Pierce, I'm glad they went with that design for Pierce. Forgive me. You see what Pierce looks like in the comic books, right?
Yeah.
They modeled him after Donald Sutherland. And I like how he's got. It just amazed me that other people didn't have cybernetics, because it takes place in 2029.
I believe so. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's part of the Reavers' shtick, is that they're cyborgs. So I think that's why. And it's the whole idea is like they were.
Are you?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was kind of lost what I was saying anyway. So
are you familiar with the Reavers?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you, were you disappointed or not disappointed that they didn't go with the Tank Reaver?
Oh, Bonebreaker, yeah. I mean, not really, because you got this. There's only so much you can do, and yeah, I didn't really mind too much. They had little hints to the Reaver, like they had one who had the Skullbuster symbol on him. He was obviously supposed to be Skullbuster. And I think there's some other hints here and there.
But there's one that would have been interesting to see. Okay, I could live without the with the tank guy. What about Lady Deathstrike?
Well, she was in X2.
That's right. I fucking forgot about that.
Yeah, she was played by Kelly Hu. Oh, looks like we got.
For folks here,
there we go. You froze for a second there.
Oh.
But yeah, Kelly Hu played Lady Deathstrike in X2.
That's right. Oh my God, son of a bitch. That's right. Remember. Well, anyways, I watched this, and this little girl, like I said, she's decapitating everybody. And then the look on Wolverine's face when he realized, holy fuck, this kid's kicking ass, is amazing. And you're like, okay, the gears are winding up again. It's like muscle memory. But of course, to the listener, as you noted earlier, this takes place in the future. And Logan is not the same Logan from the movies. In a sense, he's obviously older. And he's showing his age.
Yeah.
That's the difference here. Is he was born in the 1800s. So by the first X-Men movie, he's obviously over 100 years old.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's only later on that something had happened where the adamantium. Now, would I be spoiling this if I?
No. I mean, we're talking. We assume people have watched this movie or that they don't care about spoilers.
Now, I want your opinion on this. Okay, what is your feeling about how the adamantium was slowly poisoning him, and also down the road, if they ever do an X-23, well, that's a whole other thing we can get into. But what is your feeling on that?
I think it's a really good idea, because that comes from the comics as well, right? The whole idea that because the adamantium in the comics, the adamantium bonding process was developed by Lord Darkwind, who's Lady Deathstrike's father.
Right.
And the process he used is like a very perfected version of it, which he can use it and without it, something about the way he does the process, it means that you don't get adamantium poisoning. So that's why Bullseye, who's got an adamantium spine, doesn't have adamantium poisoning, even though he doesn't have a healing factor.
Right.
But the one used by Weapon X, Weapon X actually stole that procedure, and it's like a less refined version of it. So they didn't have a way to combat the adamantium poisoning. But with Wolverine, it doesn't matter because his healing factor fights off the adamantium poisoning. When his healing factor fails in the comics, this has happened a few times. When he lost his healing factor, one time was in Alan Davis's last storyline when he was doing the X-Men books back in the late '90s. Had a storyline with this where
Is that when Wolverine went to hell?
no, that was a different one. But this was way before that. There was the story that Alan Davis did where the High Evolutionary eliminates the X gene and like suppresses all mutant abilities, and Wolverine gets infected, like because his healing factor is not working anymore. He starts getting adamantium poisoning, and it starts wreaking havoc on his body. And they do a similar thing in this movie where, because of his age, his healing factor is not as strong as it used to be, and because his healing factor is weakening, which probably might have something to do with the corn syrup stuff as well. His healing factor is weakening now, and that's why the adamantium poisoning is starting to take effect.
See, that's interesting. Because I was thinking the whole movie, how the hell is his healing factor not working as it used to be? You know, what's setting that off?
Yeah, it's just a matter of age, or it could also be viewed as the effects of this transigens experiments or whatever, what they're doing.
But you could see as he's gotten older, like you see early in the movie, he's sleeping in the car.
Yeah.
Right, his chauffeured car, and those guys are trying to take the hubcaps.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to kill these people. You know, and I'm sure he probably was hesitant in the past as well, but you could tell he's tired. Even when he's fighting, he's tired, especially when the guy pulled a shotgun at him and shot him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could see that he's a slower, more debilitated Wolverine.
Well, there's even like the once when he unleashes his claws, like there's that one claw that doesn't come all the way out.
Oh yeah. Like, and he has a hard time putting them back.
Yeah.
That I gotta tell you, I felt bad for him when he had his hand. And you know, I don't know, did he cut him or what? Because they can regrow, right? Is that it? Or
they don't regrow, no, because they're fused with adamantium. Like if they're bone, like if they don't have the adamantium, they're just bone, then they can regrow.
Because you know that one scene, he's in his room and he's got all that blood and everything with his hand there. Like was he trying to retract them, push them back in? Was that?
I think he was trying to pull it out to like kind of loosen it.
Oh.
So that it came out the full way, because it didn't come out all the way. So he was trying to unstick it. Basically, whatever he was trying to unstick the claw. That's basically what it was.
Okay. Well, see, yeah, and so you can tell he's trying to avoid conflict.
Yeah.
As much as he can, because he knows it's sort of like. Can I go back to Spawn for a moment?
Absolutely, yeah.
When Spawn tried to avoid to use his powers as much as he could.
Right. Because because he had the more he uses powers, the quicker he went to hell.
Right, and so I'm wondering if, on some level, that Logan was thinking the same thing. That the more he exercises his mutant powers, the closer that clock ticks to 12.
I don't know, because I don't think the healing factor doesn't work quite. It does. It's not that the healing factor runs out. It's just that it's not as strong as it used to be. Just like, you know, when you get older, you know, you can't do things as well as you used to be able to do.
No, I get that. It's just because when you see in the movie, it's taken him. Because I remember in other movies, the same wounds they would heal within an hour or something like that. And in this one, especially when he's sleeping in the Jeep with X-23, it's taking him days to heal now.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like I misunderstood what you were saying. But yeah, so like he doesn't. want to engage as much because he knows he can't heal as well as he used to. Yeah, that makes
Right.
sense. But I think also it's part of that, but I think it's also just like he's just tired, right? He's
Right.
been doing this for over 100 years now, and he's just done with it. Especially now that, you know, he lost, you know, both his families, right? He's lost his family several times over now. And so I think he's just tired. He's just exhausted completely.
I'm so glad. Well, there's another character we've not talked as much about. It's in the movie, and we have to hit on him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the professor.
Yes, yeah.
So you brought on age, and I have to tell you, Patrick Stewart did a bang up job.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is right. That is the best version of Professor X I had ever seen him play.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could be, and I'm probably wrong. You know, my but I thought it was fantastic.
It was such a tragic portrayal of the character because you see him and he's got these moments of lucidity and like when they're at the dinner table, right? Or when he's talking to Laura, like he's got these moments of lucidity and the old Professor X is in there. But then you compare that with the fact that his mind is clearly deteriorating. And
yeah, I gotta tell you, if I may hit on a personal note,
yeah, absolutely, go ahead.
My father recently passed away 2 months ago. He was 95 years old, and when I saw Stewart's Professor X in that movie, it was almost uncanny because my father actually kind of had the same sweater and you know, and the wheels crumpled up in a wheelchair, like no motorized chair. We wouldn't trust him with a motorized chair. But my father had spent his last 2 years with extreme dementia.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, his mind was gone, and he would have these lucid moments, and it just, I had to pause a few times because I keep seeing my father. And anybody who's ever taken care of an elderly person will know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
I watched my father slowly decay mentally. And my dad was a nerd too, you know, and I watched an X, and Professor X is going on about Taco Bell. And my dad, same thing. He would watch a commercial, or he would start talking about reiterating the quotes of a commercial, like from Geico, or my dad loves cowboy movies, and he would start quoting, some other stuff, and not he would think he was in the movie or a commercial,
right.
Or God help me, we were watching Price is Right, and so something like that. So I just thought, when Stewart says he did research on people with dementia, that man nailed it. I mean, I said, why isn't he doing other roles similar to this? I mean, I know, God, what's the guy's name who played Hannibal Lecter again?
Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins, thank you. He did a movie about a person with dementia. I'm thinking Patrick Stewart could have easily done that movie. And I'll tell you, I was shocked to learn Patrick Stewart never lost weight until he did this movie.
Yeah, I read that too.
I was very surprised. I just thought that was CGI. And
that was him. They, in fact, James Mangold had intentionally used as little CGI as possible in this movie.
Yes, and Mangold was smart for when Professor X had those seizures. He wanted to create a natural image, I read.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about it. You don't want some flashes or beams or electro, you see that scene in the casino. He said that major one. Nobody can move. Or earlier in the movie, when the first one, when you're introduced to the seizures, and Caliban can't move. Nobody can fucking move. And then they're aware of it. It's not like time stopped.
Right.
And then in the casino, you see it, and Wolverine's slowly trying to get to save the professor because the professor's having these guys are storming in there, right? And he just basically stopped him. And they just look at that one soldier when he realizes, I'm going to get killed by Wolverine, And so, but the way he tilted his head, Patrick Stewart, I've seen people with seizures. You've probably seen people with seizures.
No, I haven't. So
Oh, well,
I'm just gonna go on what you're saying
well,
here. So.
there's a lot of kids I remember growing up or in high school where they would have seizures and they would tilt their head that certain way. Somebody did their homework in this movie.
Mhm.
They did their home. Oh my god, I'm too close to the camera here. You know, the only thing about Professor X, he didn't take his medicine.
Mhm.
He was hiding. My dad did the same thing. People with dementia did not like to take their medicine.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but I just thought, and I also, that was the first time I've seen Patrick Stewart with the most hair since I saw him in I, Claudius.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, which if anybody's ever want to see, Google I, Claudius with Patrick Stewart. The man has a perm. Okay, curly hair. You know.
Oh wow, yeah, I'm looking it up right now.
Now, and if I'm talking too much, tell me to shut
No,
up.
not at all. You're doing great.
The other thing is, I don't know if this is a breaking the fourth wall or it's meta, but I just found it hilarious that there was an X-Men comic book in that movie.
I thought that was so that's something I wanted to mention is kind of like where this takes place in the timeline, because this movie gives you two options, and it does it in a really clever way. It can either be set after you saw Days of Future Past, right?
I saw all the X-Men movies.
Okay, so yeah, and at the end of Days of Future Past, Wolverine wakes up in the new future, and this movie takes place like 2 years after that.
Okay, so it's in that universe then.
Well, that's one way you can look at it, right? You can look at it as being that way, but also, like, because when he finds the X-Men comic book and he mentions and he says like, some of it happened the way they said, but a lot of it didn't.
Yeah.
Right. So that gives you another option that this is completely separate from those other movies.
See, this is why I love the ambiguity of the movie.
Yeah.
There's a cloud of ambiguity here because you don't know. I mean, this could literally just be its own thing.
Right. They mention the X-Men, but they don't mention anything else about them. And the comic is clearly just like, someone making a comic book about any national celebrities, like the Kiss comic books or something like that.
Sure. No, I know that's done deliberately. The X-Men comic book came out after the movie that came out was it 2003, the Statue of Liberty movie, right?
Yeah.
Right, and so like
well, he also makes a reference to that because he says the Statue of Liberty was a long time ago.
Right, and God, it just reminds me of another scene. And again, I don't know, but Caliban. I'm going back to Caliban. I don't know why I'm going back to Caliban, but I felt bad. I know it was played by two different actors. Caliban was in another movie. I can't think of the
He was in X-Men Apocalypse.
Right.
In this one, he was played by Stephen Merchant.
Right.
And then
I like that scene. They're trying to get this boat.
Yeah.
Like the Sunscreener? No.
The Sunseeker.
Sunseeker, excuse me. Thank you. And where am I going to be, in the galley?
Yeah.
Right. And so and so when Professor Xavier dies in the bed of that pickup truck, and he mentions the Sunseeker, it's like he's returning to his lucidity. Again, I'm gonna go back to my father, my dad, right before he passed away. He had that one lucid moment before he passed. It's the same thing. But yeah, again, going back to the ambiguity, I know we're going all over the place here. It's the same thing with the ending of the movie. You don't know what happens to those kids. Which, by the way, I love that. I don't think every movie shouldn't be spoon-fed to you what's going on.
Yeah.
Trying to think of another movie that's like that. The only one I can think of is
it was Thomas Lemarquis who played Caliban in X-Men Apocalypse.
Right. He was great. Did they say why they changed actors?
I don't think so. I think they just said they. See if there's anything about why they had Caliban.
Well, like I said, the only other. I like the ambiguity. Same thing with Shane. They took that from Shane. You ever watched the end of Shane? Or actually,
yeah.
High Plains Drifter or like you said, a Kurosawa movies. There's a
So they apparently they were inspired to use this Caliban from the Tempest, the Shakespeare play, because he serves a hero living in self-imposed exile.
Yes, well, that makes sense then.
So that's why they decided they leaned on that for this interpretation.
What you saw when Pierce, not Pierce, was it Dr. Pierce? No, Pierce was not. Pierce was
the head of the Reavers. Leader. Yeah, Dr. Rice, you mean?
Dr. Rice. When no, it was Pierce. Excuse me. When he captured him, and he says, "You were one on our side." What made you change? And henceforth, like you said, the Shakespearean character, he realized, he had a moment, and he, so I mean, it was amazing. And then that self-sacrifice, because he knows he doesn't want to be used.
Right.
And I think he kind of figured there was no hope for him. I'm just curious though with his body and all these other ones they laid out. Now I know the doctor is dead, but had they continued, and I guess this goes on with the other issue with obviously Sony no longer in control of the X-Men movie. Is that right?
Mean Fox?
Fox, excuse me.
Yeah.
Fox. I know after Logan, there was some sort of attempt to make a spin-off for X-23.
There were they were talking about doing that. Like nothing ever actually moved forward with it, but there was like this idea that they could have her play X-23 in future movies. But obviously nothing ever came of that. And they made, because after Logan, they made there was Deadpool 2 came out after Logan, and then there was Dark Phoenix came out. Apocalypse came out before.
Right.
And then the ones after it was Deadpool 2, and then it was Dark Phoenix, which was dog shit. And then the New Mutants was the last
movie I didn't see.
You're not missing anything. It was terrible.
Okay.
And then the New Mutants came out, was the last one that came out.
How was that?
It was okay.
Okay.
We did a review of it last year, I think.
Okay, I'll check that out. But I like I said, I saw X-Men movies. I saw Apocalypse and I see Logan and all that. But going back to the movie, answer me this: when they had X-24, who was obviously the thing they were developing, who ended up killing that family.
Yeah.
Is it me or did he look at it? I know it's supposed to be a clone, I think.
Yeah.
But the way they had him dressed up, he more looked like Liev Schreiber's Sabretooth.
He did have a little bit of that, yeah.
You noticed that?
I did notice that. Now, but I'm glad you mentioned X-24 because I wanted to talk about him, which that was the weakest part of the movie, I felt. I felt like you didn't really have, I mean, I get the idea what they're trying to go for, that the real enemy that Logan's facing is his own mortality and, putting him up against his younger self. And I get that. It's just, it feels like a very poor choice of villain. Like, it feels like a very poor choice of antagonist. It feels very much like in X2, when you just had Deathstrike was just like a mindless killing machine, basically. And so there wasn't really that conflict with an adversary like you get in like, for example, go back to Unforgiven, right? In Unforgiven, you had a clear antagonist there in Little Bill's character. You don't have that same representative figure in this, not in the same way, because X-24 doesn't have a personality, and that was one of the weakest parts of the movie for me.
He came off like a Frankenstein with adamantium claws.
Exactly, yeah.
Now,
originally, Liev Schreiber was in talks to appear in this movie, but not as a villain. He was going to be that scene in Vegas. He was actually going to be like running Vegas. Was actually what it was going to be. He was going to be like running a casino there or something. That was the original plan for him. And so, and I don't know if they went to him willingly or if they just happened to run across him or something. But that was the original plan, was that they would bring him back in. But I guess they decided to just keep it more simplified.
Well, there was a lot of it. I know that during the scene in the hotel when Professor X has that seizure, they were thinking of doing flashbacks of when the X-Men were killed.
Yeah.
And then they realized, wait a minute, it's more tragic this week because they're focusing on the tragedy of Professor X in that moment.
Right. Yeah.
Not the. I mean, we already know the X-Men are gone. You know, not why beat a dead horse?
Yeah.
To use a terrible cliche.
Yeah, and the other, and this is kind of a minor gripe, but it was just something that stuck out to me this last time I was watching it. Because, okay, so Laura's 11 years old, which means she's still got maturing to do. She's still going to be growing up. So why would you bond an adamantium skeleton to her at this age when her skeleton's going to keep growing?
You know, that's a damn good question. I was surprised. What I was thinking about when they showed that surgery scene was, you know, how were they able to? Well, first off, the entire surgery scene is completely different than how they did it. I like you said, the Weapon X version was a schmutzy version.
Oh God, that movie was
quick
terrible.
and dirty. But you got to say to yourself, okay, you have a healing factor. She's got the claws already, minus adamantium. What made them think that a child? Because the surgery takes place not when she's 11. The surgery takes place years earlier.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how that works out.
How would a child survive that? Because you're literally having to
especially
skin them alive.
Well, especially because the you know, a mutant's powers don't emerge until puberty anyway.
Right. So how do you do that? Because if I recall correctly, wound cuts, even in the skull, everywhere, for that liquid to seep in. It's not they're nailing it and bolting it in. They're, you know, it's like liquid metal and shit like that. And like, how, you know, and why did they stop with mutants that they had there that they could have done the same thing with, you know? That's the other thing that always got me is, and I know you can easily scare a kid into suppression and all that stuff. And who knows, maybe I'm missing some technology they were using in the cells, but as I recall correctly, you had kids that were able to push blocks out of the walls, you know, and I'm saying, well, wait a minute, they could easily escape, like that scene in The Boys. I don't know if you ever seen on Amazon, The Boys.
Yeah, I have.
You know that scene I'm talking about, the Institute, where they're all escaping?
Right.
You know, like the guy with the giant penis, and then the girl that can make people explode.
Yeah.
You know, like, why the fuck are you trying to escape? Why are you waiting?
They did eventually try to escape.
So. Eventually, you're right, but it just, I'm like, how are they? I just start questioning myself. How are they able to keep them under control?
Well, I mean, that you could say that question about any type of concentration camp situation where the prisoners far outnumber the guards, but they still don't rise up. So that happens a lot. So that doesn't surprise me too much.
But none of these people in labor camps had special powers.
True, but still, but you know, you get them as a young age. You're able to, because as far as these kids know, this is all normal for them because this is the only life they've ever known.
That's true. You're right. I forgot they were born in that place.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's just what a terrible life. And you know, you feel for the kids. I'm still trying to figure out. I'm sure I've seen kids drive cars before. Don't get me wrong. I've seen them. That girl essentially drove through 3 states. Well, because they get out of, let's see, the casino is where, in Oklahoma City?
I don't know if they ever mentioned it specifically.
But I remember, didn't Munson say that North Dakota was 2 days away?
Something like that.
Right. So she drove that Jeep on the same tank of gas for 2 days. I've been in that part of the country. There's no fucking gas stations. Okay. Maybe in these small towns, you know, I don't know how she pulled that off. And I just wondered how those kids got there. You know, I mean, I just had a lot of, I'm not, this is not a criticism. It's more of a curiosity.
Right.
You know, that there was that way station.
Well, there's some things in these movies that just, when you think about it, they don't fit together. Like I remember in X-Men: The Last Stand, where apparently Westchester and San Francisco are right next door to each other.
Yeah, that's right. That never made any sense to me. Yeah. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Or even in Captain America Civil War had that too, where they had he asked for 24 hours to get Steve Rogers, and then he has time to fly to New York and fly back. And so that was another, and then
Then it makes it. You're
and
right.
also same thing with Cap, right? He gets Clint to leave retirement from his farm, go to New York to pick up Wanda, and then go to San Francisco to pick up Ant-Man,
And
then
then come right back.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's some
Yeah.
of that in that too as well.
Now, what is it? What do they call that jet? The Stratojet? No.
The Quinjet.
The Quinjet. Maybe that Quinjet's got some real kick-ass afterburners. I don't know.
Yeah, but they didn't even have the Quinjet. That was why they're at the airport to steal the Quinjet.
Well, you know what? Listen. Again, it's always going to be a curiosity.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure that's an old, well, first off, they're using an old Force Reserve thing
Mhm.
in that. So, or maybe the people from Eden. I was curious though if there really was an Eden in that, because we'll never know. But I'm just saying,
Mhm.
I've always wondered, like if you went to Canada, because that's where they were heading,
Right.
like Eden was like on the other side of Canada, or right, like in North Dakota. I can never
Mhm.
tell. Like, what if there's nothing there?
Right.
know,
Yeah.
well-
Yeah.
You know, though I'm sure they could survive. It's just that the impression I got of the United States was it was basically the mutant version of the Republic of Gilead from Handmaid's Tale.
Mhm.
And Handmaid's Tale, where you got to go north. You got to go north to escape.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, boy, that would have been something if they went north. And who's waiting for them? Who's running Eden? Sabretooth, or Sasquatch, or Alpha Flight.
Mhm.
Oh, that would have been something. Alpha Flight. Oh my gosh. But holy cow! And then those little kids, they packed a punch. That was, it like quickly turned into Call of Duty. No, not
Mhm.
Call of Duty. Oh shit. Far Cry.
Mhm.
You ever play a Far Cry game?
I only played like one of the demos once. I'm not a big fan of the first person type thing. That's why I couldn't get
Okay.
into it.
They're not first person. They're all you can put them in third person.
Oh, really? I thought they were all first person. Okay.
I could have sworn they're third person. Anyways, well, don't play Cyberpunk then.
I actually do play. I have Cyberpunk. I put it aside for that, but it did annoy me that it's not in third person.
There is a mod though.
Not for
Believe it or-
PlayStation 4.
No. Well, I don't have it for the. Oddly enough, I got it for Stadia. I never thought I'd get a Stadia game,
Mhm.
but it's the best version. I hate to tell you that.
Well, yeah, I know. The PlayStation 1 had a lot of problems with it.
But anyways, getting back to the movie. Well, gee willikers, I'm running out of things here. I liked it. I know the noir one. I've been told you can actually see the faux Wolverine, the CGI Wolverine, the one that gets killed with a adamantium bullet. Boy, he didn't see that coming, did he?
Mhm.
You know. You know what that reminded me of? I laughed.
I also that was another thing I hated was they brought back the adamantium because that was from X-Men Origins as well, which
right
always was a stupid thing to me because if you hit adamantium with more adamantium, I don't get why it's supposed to break it.
I don't either. I think it was like their Deus Ex Machina. But when I
Yeah.
laughed at that for one reason, because sometimes when I watch a movie, maybe because I'm stupid, but when I watch a movie, certain other movies pop into my head. I don't know if that ever happens to you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But that scene, immediately the final scene from Die Hard popped into my head when Officer Carl
Mhm.
shoots. You know what scene I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
That one terrorist with the long hair manages to live and comes out. And he's firing away, and that fat cop manages to shoot him. And it's I swear to you, look at that scene when they close in on Carl, the cop from Family Matters, and
Reginald Bell Johnson.
Yeah, Reginald Bell Johnson, and then look at the at X-23. It's the same scene. It's the same scene. No.
But yeah, it was great movie overall, and it was, even with the little flaws they have, like, it doesn't detract. And those flaws only came out to me after seeing this movie so many times, and then thinking like, oh, wait a minute, hold on a second. But I mean, that they're really minor complaints in the larger scheme of things.
Yes,
I mean,
I agree. Yeah.
This was such a perfect send off for both Jackman and Stewart. Like, and yeah, I feel kind of bad that McKellen didn't get as good of a send off as they did.
He wanted to be in that movie.
Yeah.
He wanted to be in it. And what other actor I can't,
Lee Schreiber definitely wanted to be in it. But with Schreiber's thing was he was there was problems with the shooting schedule with Ray Donovan, so they weren't able to work
That's
it out.
a great show.
I haven't seen it, but I heard it's really good.
Oh, it's a great show. You should see that.
What is that on? Is that on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. It's on Showtime.
Okay.
He plays a fix. You know the premise of the show, right? He
He
plays a fixer in Hollywood.
Okay.
Okay, but it's really good. He's got two other brothers who are schmucks.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, he's got a brother, and his father is played by who's that guy who's in the Donald Trump all the time?
Jon Voight?
Jon Voight, thank you. But Jon Voight comes off as a complete asshole.
Well, I mean, he basically is an asshole these days. So
right, he is an asshole these days. But I mean, this is it. This is really. But it's a good show, and I can see how that could have been taking up a lot of his time.
Okay, I'll have to see if it's on Amazon, because we've got Amazon Prime here in Japan. We don't have. I'm not subscribed to the U.S. one just because for shipping stuff and everything.
Sure.
So I'll have to check that out, see if it's on there.
Do you get the other? See, I'm subscribed to so many goddamn things now.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, and HBO.
Yeah, I got the Disney Plus. I have the Hulu. I don't have the live Hulu.
I might end up canceling Hulu just because I don't use that one as much.
There's not that much. You know what it is? It's pissing me off about Hulu. Is a lot of the stuff that used to be on the regular $10 a month thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's the one we had because we don't want to watch the commercials.
They're
pushing it towards you have to get the live TV service.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I'm not paying $70 a month for that.
70? Oh, Jesus, no.
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah. And it's the worst one out of the bunch. If I gotta be forced to pay for live IPTV, I'll get the YouTube TV.
Yeah.
Well,
also Hulu is now. They also pissed me off because they recently ended support for older versions of iOS.
Oh yeah.
So like my iPad is it's a 2013 iPad, so which still works great. Like I mostly use it for reading comics and for like watching for streaming stuff when I'm like cooking or something.
I had to chuck out. I can't use my old Apple TV.
Oh really?
Yeah, no, I can't use it. Well, I mean, not the newest one, but the last 4K and the last HD ones you can. But I had like the second or first generation Apple TV.
Yeah. Well, the second generation you could jailbreak, and you could install Infuse on it. But the third generation, that was the one that screwed me over because that one you couldn't jailbreak it, and that was before they introduced the App Store, which allowed for more flexibility. So like now I switched off of iTunes and I put everything on Plex now, and I can run that through my Apple TV 4.
I've been wanting to run Plex for the longest. Wait a minute. So with Plex, you can
put
all your...
We'll talk about this a little bit more once you finish the recording. So let's
gang, right. Sorry, gang. Sorry, we're veering off here. Let's have some final thoughts on Logan here.
Okay, so go ahead. What final thoughts do you have on it?
Well, I'm not gonna just say I like the movie because I've already told you I've seen it like 15 times already. I thought I love the ambiguity of it. I'll reiterate that. I thought it was like a more mature send-off. It was almost in a way for somebody who, if you were a kid reading Wolverine back in the 80s or the 90s, and now you're an adult, and it's like, hey, it was a fun ride. Thanks for everything. And it's time to close up the show, sort of thing. And I thought it was a wonderful movie. I thought that the young lady who played X-23,
Daphne Keane.
Yeah, Daphne Keane. Thank you. Had Fox, right? Fox, or am I forgetting it again?
Fox, yeah, you got it right.
Fox, not lose the rights for X-Men. I would have loved to see an X-23. I don't think it's happening now. I think you're right. And Patrick Stewart. had the best Professor X out of all of the X-Men in that one.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pretty much echoing a lot of what you said. I mean, Jackman, this was the perfect send-off for him. And that's why when people say like it annoys me when people say they want him to come back, because this was just such a perfect ending for his career as Wolverine, that there's nothing else is going to top this, and they shouldn't even try. And it's just it'd be like, well, I mean, Sean Connery never got a proper send-off as James Bond, so that it's not the fair comparison. But it's like, when you bring him back afterwards for Never Say Never Again. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. And well, let's see what happens. Let's see what the future brings.
Yeah. I mean, and if they do bring Jackman back in some other capacity, like if he's producing or if he's directing, that I think would be a much better idea.
I think out of anybody who served in that, I think he would be great at it, because he knows the content.
Right.
And he obviously is a fan and a nerd like us. We're geeks, because look at, all you have to do is look at his Instagram.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just playing with the fan base, versus, I hate to say it, but there's been a lot of people who were in the X-Men movies who basically they treated like a redheaded stepchild.
Right.
And they shouldn't. Whereas Hugh Jackman, he's like a big kid in a way. Well, I love that.
I've read this about Hugh Jackman, is that he's apparently you don't get a clearer difference between the person and the character than you do with Hugh Jackman, because he is like the complete opposite of Wolverine in his real life. He is apparently like the nicest guy. And like people who've worked on set with him, they said like, he bought us lunch. He'd ask us how we're doing. He was like, he's such a friendly, personable guy. He's not at all full of himself. And Jesus, the guy is so multi-talented. Like he's an amazing actor. He's a singer. He's a dancer. He's just,
oh, that's right.
Too much talent in one man.
I forgot about that. That's correct. The guy was in a musical. Yeah, it was Australia. What am I saying?
There was, I don't know if it was
no, not Australia. No, not Australia.
But it was he was in The Greatest Showman,
Showman,
and he was also in Les Miserables.
I didn't know. Well, holy shit, Perry! I gotta tell you, it was a treat to watch this movie. Thank you for inviting me to watch it again.
Well, thank you for coming on. We'll have to have you come back on again at some point in the future.
Well, I'm here for you, pal, and this was definitely to everybody. Continue listening to this podcast. You're in for a treat.
Okay. All right, Johnny, hold on. Let me just close up the show, and then we'll talk a little bit off recording.
Sure.
Okay. All right. But anyway, thank you, everyone else. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube, head on over to superherocinephiles.com is our website. Superhero Cinephiles is the group on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Super Cinema Pod at both of those. If you go to the website, you can also rent this movie or any others. And if you rent or purchase from any of the links there, we get a little support for the show. If you can help donate at all through Buy Me a Coffee or through PayPal or anything like that, it helps us keep the show running. So yeah, anything you can do to help out would definitely be appreciated. That's all for this episode. Next episode will actually be a two-parter. I've got another guest coming on. We're going to be talking about the Mark Webb Amazing Spider-Man movie. So that's going to be the next two episodes.
Oh, wow.
So thanks so much for watching. And if you're listening, if you are interested in being a guest on the show, drop me a line through the website. We've got, there's a contact form. You can reach me through that. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.
You have been listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Super Cinema Pod. Join our Facebook group by searching for Superhero Cinephiles, where you can interact with us and other superhero fans. If you'd like to support the show, you can become a regular supporter at Patreon or make a one-time donation through PayPal, both of which can be found at our website, superherocinephiles.com. If you buy or rent any movies through the Amazon links at our site, it helps support the show. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.